What's up, Flanovers? We are ready for Sunday Night Football between the Bills and the Ravens. Should be a fun one. Two rushing quarterbacks, two of the better teams in the NFL. Always a good matchup between the Ravens and the Bills. Always tough to tear me away from the games that are going on right now. I just saw as I was coming on, Brock Purdy threw a touchdown. Let me know who Brock Purdy threw his touchdown to, because if it's CMC, it's gonna tank me in my cage match with Jake Tribby. So I'm hoping that it's not CMC. We're going to be doing the usual here. I'm going to be going through the slate: quarterbacks, running backs, receivers, tight ends, a little bit of defenses and kickers. At the end, I will play around with some lineups. I'll take any questions you have. I'm going to be running the Sims on the show. So I'll be making my own lineups at the end of the show right here while I'm running the Sims. What else? Any other notes here? Please do like the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. Trying to get to 6,000 subscribers by the end of the NFL season, and I've got a long ways to go. I need to update that. Actually, the number there is up a little bit from that number, but still a ways to go until 6,000. So would appreciate it if you would like and subscribe to the channel. All right, good to see many of you in here. Always love seeing people showing up in chat week after week, day after day. But let's get into it. We're going to start with the quarterbacks, and I'm actually going to move over to the RG screen. Take a look at the projected ownership. We just got news, by the way. Curtis Samuel is inactive, and also Keaton Mitchell. That one kind of surprised me. Not entirely. If you listen to John Harbaugh, he kind of said Keaton Mitchell has to work really hard to get on the field because they've got Justice Hill and Derrick Henry in front of him. Hard to get on the field. Still kind of surprised that he was inactive. I thought he would be out there. But we're going to start with the quarterbacks. Josh Allen projected for 23% captain ownership. Lamar Jackson projected for 20% captain ownership. And then in the flex, Josh Allen projected for 53% ownership. Lamar Jackson, 54%. These are two of the best fantasy quarterbacks out there. I'm going to have probably close to what the field has right there. I think those numbers are about right. A little bit under 25% in the captain spot for both. Seems about right. Now that I'm using Run the Sims, I have a little bit less control over sound off. Nigel says other people can hear me, I think. So I think it's on your end. I think I'm going to have a little bit less control over how I make my lineups, but I would like to have 20 to 25% of each of these quarterbacks in the captain spot, about 75% of each overall. I think they're obviously fantastic plays. You don't really need to say all that much about them. I think everybody knows that, knows who they are. Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, pretty studs. The one thing I will say is they're different from a lot of quarterbacks in that I think you can play them anywhere in your lineup without any stacking partners. I still typically am going to want to play them in the if I have them in the captain spot, I want them to be stacked up with at least one pass catcher most of the time, but I'm not going to require it. It's not something that I am forcing with these quarterbacks. I think you can make good lineups where you just assume that they do it on the ground. Josh Allen, a couple rushing touchdowns. Lamar Jackson, maybe 90 and a tutty. So I think that you can play them anywhere in your lineup without pass catchers. Yeah, don't really need to say more here because they are neither of them is a pocket passer. So it's pretty easy with these quarterbacks. You don't really need to worry about the stacking when they're in the captain spot. So I think that's really all I have to say about it. It's a tough matchup. Obviously, these are both really strong defenses, but they're kind of tough defenses across the board. Bills defense gave up the 10th fewest schedule adjusted fantasy points per game last year to quarterbacks. Ravens gave up the 11th fewest. So both, in the bottom third-ish of defenses to face. But these are also just such dynamic quarterbacks that they can get there regardless of who they're facing. So I'm not really scared of it. And everybody kind of has a tough matchup here. So yes, I think both fantastic plays. Don't think I need to say more about the quarterbacks. So I'm just going to move right on to the running backs. Derrick Henry, another similar to the quarterbacks. He just can get it done. Anybody. He actually let me pull up the projected ownership. So project for 34% flex ownership, 11% captain ownership. Those are pretty reasonable numbers for Derrick Henry. With that said, I do imagine that I'm going to end up a little bit under the field on Derrick Henry because it's harder to play contrarian lineups that are really well correlated with Derrick Henry. I think just because the quarterbacks, you can play them with kind of lower owned pass catchers and they correlate really well. It's harder to do that with the running backs. I guess you could play them with their defenses and that's kind of correlated and the defenses are going to be low owned. So it is possible, but I think ultimately I prefer to play it through the passing games. If we take a look at the schedule adjusted fantasy points allowed from last year, and if I'm being honest with you, I don't love the first week of the season. I usually love DFS more getting like 2-3 weeks in, where we do have a little bit of a sample size looking at the defenses here, start to get a feel for the new teams, because teams do change so much year over year. So week one is always kind of a struggle for me. But as of last year, the Bills actually gave up the 6th most fantasy points to running backs last year. So not a really tough matchup for Derrick Henry, if you look at last year. And then Baltimore was like, what, 9th worst or something, 9th or 10th worst matchup for running backs. But the one thing I will say is, although on paper not the worst matchup for running backs, it was mostly through the air. It's actually a slightly negative matchup for running backs on the ground, as you can see here. Positive matchup for running backs through the air, which is not what Derrick Henry really does. So it's a better matchup for Justice Hill from that standpoint. With that said, I think that really comes down to game script more than anything. I don't think they seek out matchups with Justice Hill. I think it's more like when they are playing from behind, they're more likely to play Justice Hill, or they're playing hurry up offense. So I'm not sure how impactful that is. I do want to look just real quick at the last 5 games here. So over their last 5 games, both were really tough defenses against running backs over the last 5 games of the season. So if you want to factor that in a little bit more, both these defenses a little bit better down the stretch last year. So Derrick Henry, ultimately, I think I'm going to be probably a little bit underweight, just because I want to get to more of the quarterbacks. I wouldn't blame anybody, though, if you want to play the opposite approach. I think both are kind of reasonable approaches. You have to make concessions somewhere. You can't play everybody. So it's mostly just I think the quarterbacks are just going to have the ball in their hands. They're going to have more opportunities to make plays. Derrick Henry obviously can make a play, even, on his 18, 20 catches, whatever he gets. But easier for the quarterbacks to get there. They just have multiple avenues to get there, and they're more correlated with other low-owned players. So I'm going to play it more through the passing game. But I think Derrick Henry, always a strong option. James Cook projected for it. Actually, let me reset this. Not seeing his projected ownership, so I want to just reset that real quick. How's everybody doing tonight? How did your days go? My day went not amazingly. I loved the RJ Harvey 50-yard touchdown. He's a guy I was pretty high on in best ball, played some in DFS, so excited to see that, but not winning anything right now. So that's a bummer. And all my good lineups had George Kittle in them. All right, James Cook projected for 6% ownership in the captain spot, 31% in the flex. I do imagine I come in underweight on James Cook also. I can read off from my friend Derek Brown, writes a primer every week where he goes really in depth in the matchups. And he does not like this matchup for James Cook. Says I'm quoting my friend Derek Brown at DebroFFB on Twitter. Baltimore's run defense is legit. Last year in weeks 10 through 18, they allowed the 4th fewest rushing yards per game, the 3rd lowest explosive run rate, and the 4th fewest yards after contact per attempt. Now, obviously, a running back is always it's always possible for a running back to just have the ball at the 1-yard line, score a touchdown because of a pass interference in the end zone, or just because the team gets it down there. They can get there just with touchdowns. But with that said, wait, who are we congratulating here? Anthony, $500 6-leg parlay is pretty nice. Travis Etienne, we played some Etienne. Good to see that. I feel like I'm missing somebody. People are excited about something. Just the $500 bet. Love that. Okay. Yes, Debro is goated. Love his work. Always goes in depth. Great to see. All right. So James Cook, just a really, really tough matchup. And by the way, highly recommend. His primer is free. He does it for fantasy sports at Fantasy Pros, but he does a really in-depth analysis of every game, every team. It's really fantastic. But yeah, tough matchup for James Cook. Not one that I want to attack. It's mostly just tough matchups. These are tough defenses in general. Beyond those two, and I skipped over. I should have finished off my thoughts on the Ravens. I do like Justice Hill a little bit. As noted, it was a better matchup for running backs through the air. It's also just easier for pass catching running backs to have good games against tough defenses because they can PPR scam their way there. And also it's only 3,000. So it's easier for him to pay off this price tag, even if it is a tough matchup. They're maybe a little bit more likely to be playing from behind and need Justice Hill in this matchup with Buffalo. So I do like Justice Hill at 15% projected ownership in the flex at captain, projected for, where is he? 1% projected ownership. I think both those are pretty nice numbers. I think you can attack Justice Hill in this one and just hope that he does PPR scam his way to a big game. I noted in my article at Fantasy Points, Justice Hill last year, he exceeded 10 fantasy points 5 different times. And actually, let me pull that up. I'm actually curious. I didn't look at who the games were against. I would imagine that he was more likely to do so in games like this, in tough matchups. But I'm actually curious now that we don't have the games listed here. If anybody feels like it, look up the game logs. See the games. Who did he face in the games where Justice Hill? Actually, let me see if I can find it. I can find that easy at the aforementioned Fantasy Pros. All right, so last year we got to go PPR. So he scored 21 against Buffalo last year. That's promising. Should have looked this up earlier. 11.5 against Kansas City. Good matchup. Tampa Bay, another tough team. Chargers, and then the Giants. So mostly tough matchups last year, and then one where they crushed the Giants. So that is kind of intriguing to me. I already liked him. It is actually interesting. It was in a big win against Buffalo in Week 4 last year. So it wasn't really just games where it was close, or games where they're trailing. So the game script argument kind of falls apart there. But nice matchup. He got there against Buffalo. Maybe he contributed to the reason that they struggled so much against pass catching running backs, but they figured it out how to get him going against Buffalo last year. Maybe they can do it again. And regardless, I just think the price is pretty nice on Justice Hill. Given five times in a year scoring double-digit fantasy points at $3,000, that's pretty nice. Those are pretty good odds, and that's probably about what you need to pay off that price tag. So I do like Justice Hill there. And then on the other side, you have Ty Johnson. Ty Johnson projected for, and Ray Davis. Sorry. So Ty Johnson is projected for about 9% ownership. He's 2.4K. That's in the flex spot. I would imagine it's about 1% again in the captain spot. Yep, a little bit under 1% in the captain spot. Again, I think those are pretty strong numbers. I believe it was three games last year that Ty Johnson exceeded. I've got it written down here. Yep, 10 fantasy points 3 different times last year in 17 games. So, not quite the same rate as Justice Hill, but that's obviously small sample size. He's a little bit cheaper than Justice Hill. That's not bad. Also, 3 times in 17 games at his price tag, we would take that. So I think Ty Johnson at low ownership, pretty strong bet. Also, I like both of those two. And then Ray Davis is a little tougher to get a handle on, because he's sort of the contingent upside back. He also has some standalone value. So he's projected for 1.5% captain ownership. And 15%. Oh, sorry, that's that is Ray Davis, and 15% flex ownership. So getting a little bit of ownership. I think I prefer at least Justice Hill over Ray Davis, because they're about the same ownership. I think Justice Hill just a little bit more likely to get there. But I don't dislike Ray Davis either. I think has strong, probably better contingent upside. Like if anything were to happen to James Cook, Ray Davis probably takes on a bigger role than if Justice Hill. No, actually now with Keaton Mitchell up, maybe that's not true. Maybe they have about the same contingent upside. And then the standalone value, I think, is slightly better for Justice Hill. I don't dislike either. I think Ray Davis also a strong bet. Probably somebody I end up overweight to the field on also. But if I were choosing between them, I think Justice Hill a little bit cheaper, a little bit more likely to get there than Ray Davis. I think that's it as far as the running backs. Actually, let me pull up fantasy points projections, just because I want to make sure I'm not missing anybody obvious. I'm pretty tired. If you can't tell, it's first week of NFL. It's a tough one. I'm excited about it. Like, I'm happy for the start. It's one of those weird feelings where I am totally exhausted and also just jazzed up for the start of NFL season, but a little bit spacey because I haven't been sleeping that well. Justice Hill. Let me go to the running back position. Oh, Rasheen Ali. I guess, oh, yeah, with that's kind of interesting. With Keaton Mitchell out, I guess Rasheen Ali is somebody we can at least consider. He is only $200. Probably is not going to see the field unless it is a blowout, would be my guess. Or, not going to get much action because they're just kind of they have their roles. Derrick Henry, Justice Hill, each have their roles. They don't really need another running back out there. So he's probably not going to see the field at least more than a touch or two, unless there is something odd going on, the game gets out of hand, then maybe he comes in. But I think he's a fine bet at $200. Not going to get any kind of ownership, I would imagine. Yeah, getting zero ownership here. Might need to refresh that. Yeah, I think with Keaton Mitchell out, nobody was planning on playing Rasheen Ali. I'd be surprised if he gets higher than like 3%. So I actually think he's a fine play, just because they only have 3 running backs there. Something could happen to one of them. Could get there in a blowout. He is. I think the likeliest scenario is that he is a 0. But I think high enough odds and low enough ownership that I'd be willing to play him. I'd like to get to some in a maybe even in 20 lineups. So maybe I'd want to get to one, but definitely in a 150 set. I think he's a fine bet there. All right, and then there was nobody else on. Yeah, Cook, Ty Johnson, Ray Davis. Yep, that's it. Okay, I think that's it as far as running backs go. So let's move on and talk about wide receivers. As Tyrell Shavers, the reason Curtis Samuel is inactive. I haven't given much thought to Tyrell. He had a good preseason. I guess it's possible. I don't think so. I think Elijah Moore may be more likely to be next man up there. But yeah, Tyrell Shavers is, I believe, active. Maybe somebody I need to think about a little bit more. My assumption is that he's not going to have much of a role. Doesn't have a projection at fantasy points. Are we sure he is active? Does he have a projection at RG? They do give him a projection. Okay, so he is active. He's $800. What's more? 3,400. That's interesting. I mean, we saw who was it last year on the Ravens, who was kind of similar, who we just like didn't. Tylan Wallace last year had the huge game for Baltimore, where none of us played him on a showdown slate because he like had run 6 routes on the entire year, and then again didn't run that many routes. Just happened to take one for 80 yards. Shavers, I guess, is let's start from the top with the wide receivers before we get down to Tyrell Shavers. All right. So the receivers, where do we want to start? Let's start on the Buffalo side. So Buffalo has Khalil Shakir, who's been dealing with a high ankle sprain, and he is going to play in this game, obviously. I don't know if he's fully healthy. It's a tough matchup regardless. Just the Ravens are such a tough defense. And then he's dealing with a high ankle sprain. So I think he might be a little bit limited. I don't think that I am super interested in Khalil Shakir. I guess it would depend somewhat on the ownership. So 27.5% projected ownership in the flex, 5% in the captain spot. It's tough. I think those are fair ownership numbers, but I suspect I come in a little bit underweight. It's hard to see him totally burying you here. It could happen. He could, PPR scam his way to 8 receptions and 2 touchdowns or something, but I think I'm willing to make the bet that he's a little bit limited. There were questions about whether he was going to be ready for week 1. He wasn't practicing for most of August. Now he's coming back a little bit early, but I think we're expecting a little bit of a dip in production at the start here. So I do think I'm going to be underweight to Khalil Shakir. Fine price tag, 11,400 at captain. In the flex, he's at 7,600. I think that's fine, but there are just others in his price range that I prefer to Khalil Shakir, so I don't really think that I'm going to get there much. I'm more interested in some other options on the Ravens. Rashad Bateman, pretty intriguing to me. So he's 5,800, 21% projected ownership. In the captain spot, Rashad Bateman, 2.5 projected ownership. I think that's pretty good. I think Rashad Bateman is somebody that I'm going to be targeting a bit. He kind of broke out last year, like didn't break out in a huge way, but like sort of started to break out. I think he's a really talented receiver. Actually, let me pull up my notes from deep. again. So per Derek Brown, Buffalo was volatile against deep passing last year, allowing the 10th highest deep adjusted completion rate while ranking 16th in deep passer rating. Last year, Buffalo was 5th in too high rate at 55%. In 2024, against too high, Bateman led the team with a 2.43 yards per route run and was second with a 0.108 first downs per route run. So that's a really good yards per route run number, led the team against too high, and that's a defense that Buffalo plays quite a bit. I think just in general, like you read the coach speak this offseason, they seem to think that he is going to take another step. And they were really high on him all of last year. They talked about it all the time last year, that they thought he was going to take a big step forward. And then he did take a big step forward. And now I think the team thinks he's going to take another big step forward. So I think he's in a good spot here. Oh, that's what Nick says. Stop saying PPR scam. If the format is PPR, then it's not a scam. It's just the way I talk about it. I don't know. It's not offensive to them. Don't mean any offense to the players, but it just means they're going to get a lot of receptions, so they're going to get there without necessarily racking up yards or touchdowns. Yeah. So I really like Rashad Bateman here. I think that this is a pretty nice spot for him. It's like a sneaky good matchup in a generally tough game environment where the defense are really good. I say that it's both really good defenses, but also this game has I think it has the highest total of any game that has been played so far. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think there's been any over like 48.5 maybe. So it still has the highest total because the offenses are so good. So people are going to, most likely, some of these players are going to score fantasy. I like Bateman's odds of being one of those players, relatively inexpensive and not getting crazy high ownership. So I really do like Bateman here in this spot. After Zay Flowers and Bateman, DeAndre Hopkins, I don't have any great reason to like DeAndre Hopkins other than he's going to be low owned. Nobody wants to go to DeAndre Hopkins, projected for 1% cap and ownership. 13% flex ownership. I mean, he wasn't great last year. Like he never ran more than 65% of the routes in a game. I believe he went from, so started obviously with Will Levis in Tennessee, and that was just a really tough situation. But then he moved to kind of the nut spot in Kansas City, and it was kind of like, if he can't do it here, is he just washed? So I think that is the concern. I think it's a fair concern that he might just be washed at this point. But I also think maybe just a fresh spot where he's had more time to get used to the team. Kansas City already had some established receivers there, a lot of established pass catchers. So maybe he can move in and he's comfortable with Lamar. I think a new offensive environment could reinvigorate him for 1 year where maybe he doesn't seem completely washed. So I'm actually pretty into this early, before we see it, before we know for sure. I want to see how he looks with Lamar Jackson on this Ravens offense. Maybe he's still running 50% routes, and we'll learn pretty quickly if he is a nothing in this offense. But at 4,200, when people aren't really on him, I think I'm willing to make the bet on DeAndre Hopkins that just he might not be as washed as he was last year, or even if he is, like this offense is just so dynamic that he can get open because they're just a little bit of trickery, maybe scores a touchdown or two. There should be a fantasy points article out, OS, for this game. You talking about tonight's game? Yeah, that should have been out a couple hours ago. So maybe double check there. If you still don't see it, then maybe I can go find it somewhere, but it should be out there. So I really do like DeAndre Hopkins for no good reason. So maybe you don't want to tell me on it, but I think that he's one of those guys that just kind of I think at this low ownership, kind of a wide range of outcomes, I kind of like taking that bet on DeAndre Hopkins. Beyond those three, Tylan Wallace, I mean, that's a tough bet. Tylan Wallace and Devontae Walker. Tez Walker got a little bit of steam in the offseason. I don't think either is likely to see the field all that much. I think it's mostly going to be Flowers, Bateman, and Hopkins. If you want to take a shot in 150 lineups on Tylan Wallace or Devontae Walker, I have no issue with it. But I don't think that I'm going to be forcing them into my lineups. If the Sims give me Tylan Wallace or Devontae Walker, I'm not going to tell them no. I'm gonna accept them in my lineups, but I'm not particularly excited about either of them. I don't think either of them is likely to see the field a ton. I think it's kind of an established pecking order here. Maybe, I mean, With Isaiah likely out, maybe they change the offense a little bit more. Maybe there's more opportunities for Tylan Wallace or Devontae Walker. Let me think about it for a second. Let me think. Let me look at the ownership. So Tylan Wallace at 4% ownership. Tez Walker at 2% ownership. Probably fair numbers. Let me look at route participation. Because they were both on the team last year. Again, they added it's a different team. They added DeAndre Hopkins. Tylan Wallace. He got up to 57% in week 13. What happened that week? I guess Bateman got hurt mid-game. So if Bateman got hurt, Tylan Wallace might come in. Nelson Aguilar. So I guess maybe there's opportunities there where Nelson Aguilar used to play. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they are more viable than I'm giving them credit for. Give me a second to think about these guys. I want to make sure refresh my memory on the coach speak here, because I was reading the coach speak index. I should have. I don't have a great memory for what was said recently, so let me search that real quick. On September 1st, head coach John Harbaugh said he expects wide receiver Tylan Wallace to take another step, maybe the biggest step of his career. Now, that's a little bit tough. Maybe that's why I don't remember it, because he's just so positive all the time. But it's still positive to hear. That was just last week. Expects Tylan Wallace to take the biggest step of his career. It's a little bit interesting. Devontae Walker, okay, was dealing with an injury in August. I don't know when he came back from this injury. He was getting a little bit of hype at one point, but yeah, maybe Tylan Wallace a little bit interesting here with Nelson Aguilar gone. I think I'm deciding that I am kind of interested in Tylan Wallace. We'll see if I get too much in the Sims. I'll be running the Sims after I'm done going through position by position. I'm starting to talk myself into it a little bit. All right. Tua Tyreek stacks are dead, JT says. Certainly feels that way. Man, what a brutal start there. The vibes were off, and apparently this is one of those cases where the vibes were correct. They just did not look good at all today. All right. So getting back to it, anybody else on the Ravens? No, nobody else on the Ravens to talk about. I think I started with Bills. I started with Khalil Shakir and then moved to the Ravens. So apologies for that. Zay Flowers, I think, is a fine bet. I like Zay Flowers better than Khalil Shakir, not dealing with any kind of injury. Yeah, totally. I started with Khalil Shakir and then I moved on to the Ravens. That is how spacey I am right now. But I've covered all the Ravens, so I guess I'll finish. Zay Flowers is what he is. Like, I think he's going to see a number of targets, pretty likely to lead the team in targets. I think he also could take another step forward this year. I think he is the favorite receiver of Lamar Jackson. I don't think it's a great matchup for Zay Flowers. I think it's, let me pull up wide receiver cornerback matchups chart. It's kind of tough for, as you can see here, everybody. Zay Flowers going to be dealing with Teron Johnson, but it is pretty tough for everybody. He's at a fair price tag, I think, for the number one receiver for Lamar Jackson. I kind of like him. Let me look at the owner. Sorry, I had to deal with those bots real quick. 33% ownership. So again, Zay Flowers 33% to Khalil Shakir's. So Khalil Shakir is a little bit less, but I prefer Zay Flowers there. At captain, 8% ownership. I don't think I really get on top of that number. I do prefer going to some of the more contrarian options, I think, or just the quarterbacks. So I don't see myself getting on top of 8% in the captain spot. But I think he's the ownership is about right on Zay Flowers. Tough matchup, but if he scores a touchdown, he probably gets there because he will get a number of PPR points as well. All right, so that does it for the Ravens. Now I'll go back to the Bills. Khalil Shakir at the top. And I already went over Khalil Shakir. Not a huge fan of Khalil Shakir in this matchup. Then you've got Keon Coleman, who none of the metrics look good for Keon Coleman. He's another player that Debra wrote up as kind of a just not a great matchup for Keon Coleman. But if you want to make the case, the case that you can make for Keon Coleman is maybe he's just ready to take a step forward. This is his second year. He is a very athletic young receiver. He might be ready to take a big step forward. He is projected for 3% captain ownership at 9,900. He's only 6,600 in the flex. I think that's a fair price tag for Keon Coleman, where he's not getting a ton of ownership. So I think I might just make the bet, especially with Khalil Shakir recovering from a high ankle sprain. I might just make the bet that Keon Coleman is going to get a little bit more work this week, that the team is going to try to make him a thing at the very least. So I don't totally, I should say, I like it. I think I'm going to be above weight on Keon Coleman. This is another one where I think we could learn pretty quickly that what we saw last year is just what he is, and he's not that phenomenal of a receiver. But at this level of ownership, at this price tag, early in the season, I think it's a fine bet to make on a young receiver who they went out and got him. I think he was first round, right? Either last end of the first round or beginning of the second round. I forget which it was, but the team really likes him. Clearly, they believe in him. They invested a lot in him. They want him to be a thing. So I like Keon Coleman for this game at the very least. Josh Palmer, kind of interesting. Went out and got him. Of course, he was in a good situation last year with the Chargers and never really did anything. So we're kind of wish casting that this year might be a little bit different, but it is a better offense here with Josh Allen. 18% projected ownership. I think that's pretty fair. 5,400. So this is a spot where I'm in general going to be lower on Khalil Shakir and then higher on the secondary, tertiary pieces in the passing game for the Bills. And Josh Palmer is one that I'm going to be at least a little bit overweight to the field here. He can, make some big plays. I think he got a little bit unlucky last year also for the Chargers. Like he was actually really good by some metrics. If you look at average separation score at fantasy points, he was good by that metric. So I think that Josh Palmer could break out a little bit this year on a better offense. So 18% ownership is low enough that I imagine I will be overweight there. Under 20% total ownership, even including captain. That's pretty good. And I think he's a fine captain play. He is a guy who's capable of some big plays, so I don't hate him as a captain play either. Elijah Moore, with Curtis Samuel up, he's playable. What does RG have him at? Let me refresh this again. 2 fantasy points, or I guess three fantasy. Oh, that's captain. 3 at captain. Virtually 0 ownership at captain. In the flex, 4% ownership at 3,400. Shaver's call-out was kind of an interesting one because of the price tag. A little bit easier for him to get there than like Elijah Moore would probably need a touchdown. I don't think he's going to have enough receptions or yards to pay off his $34 price tag. Shaver's at 800, a little bit easier to get there. I'm not super enthusiastic about either of them. But if Khalil Shakir is more than limited, like if he's actually runs 50% of the routes, gives up some of those routes, maybe those guys have a little bit more opportunity to get there. And I think it would be Elijah Moore most likely who would be filling in the Khalil Shakir role. So I don't totally hate it. I'll probably be above 4% ownership. I'm not going to be slamming it. I'm not going to be 20% plus, at least not intentionally. But I do think it is a fairly strong play. You might want to play him in a 20 max, play him in one of your lineups. I don't think I would play Tyrell Shavers in one of my lineups. I think that Elijah Moore is a little bit of a more likely bet to hit. Tyrell Shavers is kind of fun for a super large field GPP though. I think that's it for the receivers. Gone over all of them. Let's move on to talk about some tight ends. Yeah, Samuel, that's what I'm saying. Samuel's that, or maybe you're responding to somebody else. All right. On to tight ends. Let me just double check on why dismiss Keon when you had a great camp. I assume you responded to somebody else because I just went over how much I like Keon today. Tab right above, please. Can we see? Oh, my apologies. Can we see the tab right above, please, to see what the numbers mean? I'm trying to think what page was I on when he asked me that. Is it this page? I probably need to yeah, okay, probably this page. Is that better? So it's just showing you all the weeks. So this is the route share over the course of the season every week. Let me know if this is what you wanted to see. If you want to see something else, I can go find the other page. Yes, likely is out also. All right, let's talk about tight ends. Actually, I pulled this page up, so we can talk about the Ravens first. So Mark Andrews, I like quite a bit. I think Mark Andrews is in a pretty good spot here. He's one that, if you look at his splits from last year, he was recovering from a car accident and tightrope surgery over the first half of the year, and then he was way better in the second half of the year. This is actually one where I can pull up my my Debro notes again on Mark Andrews. So it is he's facing a Bills defense that allowed the 12th fewest schedule adjusted fantasy points per game to tight ends last year, but he should see a heavier workload with Isaiah likely out. And as Debro noted, weeks 1 through 9, Mark Andrews tight end 16 in fantasy points per game, 11% target share, 18% targets per route run, 1.77 yards per route run. Just not particularly good in the first 8 weeks of the season, but after week 9, again, quoting Derek Brown here, every discernible per route metric that we should care about improved for Andrews as he posted an 18.1% target share, 24% targets per route run, 2.31 yards per hour run. That's really good for a tight end. 48 receiving yards per game, 18.9% first read target share. Just everything was much better for Mark Andrews in the second half of last year. And as Debro notes also, last year Buffalo was fifth in too high rate at 55%. In 2024 against too high in weeks 10 through 18, Andrews had a 27% target per route run rate, 1.9 yards per route run. Just really strong metrics, and the matchup kind of lines up well there. So at relatively low ownership, I think Andrews is a pretty strong play here, and he's not getting crazy high. I mean, 28% ownership in the flex for Mark Andrews seems pretty good to me. 6% in the captain spot. I like both those numbers. I think I end up overweight on both of them. I had pulled up. So this is route share. I want to see what the route share looked like with Isaiah likely out. Now he only missed, I guess he missed more of this game also. So the games where Isaiah likely missed, I wanted to see who benefited the most. So he was down at 27% in this game. Mark Andrews is also down in that game. But we saw Charlie Kolar was only at, okay, it was only at 9% the first game. The second game that he missed, Charlie Kolar did have his biggest route participation of the year at 27.8%. I think that's going to happen again today. I think Charlie Kolar is going to increase his route participation and become a viable option. Still not like a slam dunk option. I don't think he's going to be, seeing the usage that Isaiah Likely would use or anything like that, but he becomes viable with Isaiah Likely out. I think he will run something like 30% of the routes, but they also just ran the receivers a little bit more in those games. It was also Mark Andrews' highest. Yeah, I guess maybe that is the bigger note there. Mark Andrews, his highest route participation of the season was the game that Isaiah Likely missed last year. So that is actually the biggest takeaway here is all the other reasons I gave for liking Mark Andrews today. Add on top of it, last year when Likely was out, he actually just ran more routes also. So yeah, Mark Andrews, maybe my favorite play of the slate. And then Charlie Kolar becomes viable with Isaiah Likely out. I think that's it as far as Ravens tight ends. They have a couple other, or they have another guy called Zaire Mitchell-Payton. Couldn't tell you anything about him. Don't expect anything from him. I don't think I'm playing him unless the Sims give him to me in some of my lineups. And then on the other side, we have Dalton Kincaid, who has just been not that good in his NFL career so far. He is cheap enough that I'm still kind of interested. He's projected for 2% captain ownership, 84% in the captain spot. In the flex, Dalton Kincaid projected for 20% ownership at 5,600. I think those are low enough numbers. Let me get rid of this bot here again. Please do like the video, by the way. This is a good reminder from Best Ball on Call. Always appreciate it when you guys will when you like the video and subscribe. It's very helpful to me. I need to get some mods in here to get rid of these guys, but yeah, so it's distracting me a little bit. So Mark Andrews I like quite a bit. Oh yeah, Dalton Kincaid, that's where I was getting. So again, only exceeded 10 fantasy points 3 times in 13 games last year. So this is a guy that, we were kind of expecting big things from. So far, we haven't seen it from Dalton Kincaid in 2 seasons. A lot are kind of expecting a bounce back this year, particularly with Khalil Shakir potentially limited. Now Dalton Kincaid, he also dealt with a number of injuries last year. He's healthy entering the season. So there is some reason for optimism with Dalton Kincaid that you could take on a heavier workload with, again, he's healthier, Khalil Shakir is less healthy. These things could lead to Dalton Kincaid being a little bit more involved in the offense. Debra also said Kincaid could see a heavy workload in week 1 against a defense that allowed the 9th most receiving yards and the 10th most receptions to tight ends last year. So good note there from Debra. This was not a terrible matchup for tight ends last year. And with the health and with Shakir dealing with issues, I like it. I think Kincaid is actually a pretty strong bet again. So I'm all the Buffalo guys that I didn't want to draft all best ball season. I'm taking them now. Kincaid, Coleman. This part of the season, I think, is the time to try it out because they're not getting a ton of ownership. They're at pretty low price tags, and Khalil Shakir is potentially limited. So I'm kind of making the bet against Shakir and on his teammates due to the injury there. Dawson Knox is like borderline playable. I looked at his game logs each of the past 2 years. He's just done nothing. Like he's been so bad the past couple of years. But we all remember he was pretty good 3 years ago, 4 years ago. He had some seasons where he actually just like racked up touchdowns. I don't know if that's coming back at all. I've made the bet on it several times. It's a better bet on Showdown than a main slate, but at 3,600, I actually don't think I end up overweight to 9%. Dawson Knox just needs to show something at some point. A touchdown probably pays it off, but not necessarily. He's clearly not like a big, focal point of this option right now, of this offense right now. So I don't think that I don't imagine I'm going to be overweight to Dawson Knox. I'll probably have a little bit of exposure, but he's not somebody that I'm super excited about because it's just been a few years since he's really shown us anything. The route participation, I can pull that up. He had one game at 75% with Dalton Kincaid out. Actually, had a few games here with Dalton Kincaid out. Still didn't do anything in those games without Dalton Kincaid. And then when Dalton Kincaid is around, you just see Dawson Knox generally take a big dip in route participation. I'm not really seeing it there. I don't think that he's somebody that I'm going to be playing a ton of. My guess is I end up a little bit underweight on Dawson Knox. And I don't think I'm playing any Jackson Hawes. Couldn't tell you anything about him. All right. Defenses and kickers. Tough matchup, obviously. These are great offenses. Bills are 5,000 projected for 10% ownership. Ravens are 4,400 projected for 13% ownership. Matt Prater, 17% ownership at 4,800. Tyler Loop, 4,600, 20% ownership. I don't totally hate the defenses at relatively low ownership here. I mean, the price tags are pretty high. Game has a high total, but they're good defenses. I mean, they could certainly do okay. I'm not super enthusiastic about it, but 10% ownership on the Bills, I'm probably going to be at least close to the 10% on the Bills, 13% on the Ravens. Kickers, I think, are they're more owned for a reason. They probably should be. These are just teams that are likely to move the ball, get into scoring range, and maybe some of the time they get stopped when they're in scoring range. So yeah, I think both of the kickers are pretty strong bets at these price tags. Yeah, on FanDuel, I know Tyler Loop is like 6,800. That doesn't interest me as much. I was looking at that. That just seems really high for a kicker on FanDuel. But Marco says Sims love Kincaid. What's the Kincaid ownership? It's 20% in the flex. So yeah, not bad Kincaid ownership. All right, I think that's enough on defenses and kickers. I should start running the Sims here momentarily. I'll take a brief look at FanDuel because I saw Dan is here, and I know Dan always likes to talk FanDuel. So I'll just take a brief look, and then I'll get on to making some lineups with Run the Sims, answering any other questions you have. There we go. So did anybody win $1,000 or more? Because that's, again, if you haven't been here, I've made some hats. I think they're going to be really cool Flannelverse hats. If you want one, all you need to do, use the Flannelverse avatar, which you can find in the Flannelverse Discord. It's free to join the Discord. There's an avatar channel. If you want to get a hat, you use that avatar, win $1,000 or more, tweet at me with a screenshot, myself or Mathology or Flannelversity on Twitter. Tweet at one of us with a screenshot with that avatar, and of course, send me your address, and then I will send you a hat when I get them. I have not gotten them yet. They should have been here a couple weeks ago, so hopefully they'll be here pretty soon. All right, FanDuel MVP. Largely just leaning into the quarterbacks. I mean, they're just likely to be the highest scorers. Now, they did actually add a multiplier to the MVP spot, a salary multiplier. So it's not as cut and dry as it once was, but they're my favorite options on DraftKings. They're my favorite options on FanDuel too. I think the quarterbacks are just really strong plays. I actually don't hate Derrick Henry at 12% MVP ownership here. I think that's actually pretty fair. Probably don't get to a ton of James Cook. Zay Flowers seems fine to me at 4.5% MVP ownership. Mark Andrews I kind of like. Went over all the reasons I like him. He's a little bit cheaper, so you can save there and then play the quarterbacks in the flex. Josh Palmer, I think at 0.5% owned is a fine bet. I suppose if you want to make the bet on like a Keon Coleman, if he is going to break out, might as well try it out. Yeah, but I think my favorites are just the quarterbacks. Mark Andrews, Bateman, I think is fine. Palmer, if you want to get super contrarian there. Maybe Justice Hill at 6,000 is on the list of my favorites. In the flex, still like the quarterbacks. Like the ownership on Mark Andrews, 21%. Bateman at I mean, that stands out. Bateman at 13% at 8,000 looks really good. Palmer's fine. Actually, pretty good at 12% ownership. I actually like that. Kincaid, 17.5% is cheap enough. I think that's pretty good. I think I'd play a lot of Kincaid. I'm not played on FanDuel tonight, but I think I'd be overweight to this number for sure. Easier for on FanDuel because it's half PPR. Easier if you score a touchdown in your low price to make the optimal lineup. So I often like the guys who are just like, yeah, they could score a touchdown, and if they do, they're probably going to be optimal. They've changed the pricing enough that you can actually get some really cheap values. It's a different game than it has been in the past on FanDuel. Again, if you want to take a shot on a Tylan Wallace at 4% ownership, $2,000 price tag, I think that seems reasonable. But yeah, I like Justice Hill again. All right. Enough of the FanDuel. Unless anybody has any questions, I'm going to go make some lineups here using Run the Sims. Wait, where is the single game? Let me refresh this. And by the way, the show is sponsored by Run the Sims. I've been really loving the product so far on the Showdown slates. I haven't lost a ton of money on either of them. Could be just beginner's luck. I haven't won money either, but I've been like close to making money, and then I've had lineups that are like within striking distance of making a ton of money on both the slates so far. So I'm pretty satisfied with the product so far. If you want to check out Run the Sims, you can get 10% off using promo code Neil on whichever package you choose. Obviously, the package that I'm using here is the one with all the bells and whistles. It's Sim Runner Pro. It has the Shady Advice portfolio optimizer included. All of that included with mine. There are other options where you can use the optimizer, get a little bit less, but it still has some sim functionality there, and you get access to the projections, which Utica helps out with. Best DFS player, arguably best DFS player on the planet. So still pretty cool. So if you want to check it out, promo code Neil, 10% off. All right. So I found the Showdown slate. I'm actually going to check in on chat before I start making these lineups. Calling me out for not actually having won a Flannelverse hat myself. That's a good point. I haven't won it yet. I haven't won $1,000. Yes, love it. Christopher agrees. We're all on team D-Hop tonight. Do you have projected captain ownership and flex? I don't know if you're asking me. All right. Let's get to it. Oh, that's awesome. Harper said he won $300 on a free FanDuel entry. That's really cool. Hope everybody played the sweat-free FanDuel today, because why not? It's pretty good deal. All right. I don't really have time, Jack, to play more FanDuel Showdown because I'm doing these shows up until lock. It's just hard to play multiple sites when I'm doing these shows. I actually liked the format like just as much. Which is contrarian. Not a lot of people do, but like I haven't had as much success on FanDuel as DraftKings, but I've been like close to having just as much success on FanDuel. Things just haven't bounced the right way for me as much on FanDuel. But I've liked the format in the past. I would love to play it, but I just don't really have the time when I'm doing the shows. All right. So as I went through this the other day, so I start with not changing anything on this page. So the thing that I love about Run the Sims is the customizability. That's always been my issue with Sims in the past is I want to be able to tell it what I want and have it give me the lineups that I want. And a lot of Sims, you can't really do that because you're pulling from the lineups that they've already made, and you're pulling lineups that they think are good. But sometimes I want to be able to just like tell it, no, I think this player is good. I think this player has a better range of outcomes than other people do. And the nice thing about Run the Sims is I can do that. I can change the range of outcomes and create the lineups based on what I think the game will go like. So it's kind of cool in that way. But I don't like to do that until after I have run it once and seen what it gives. So I'm not going to change any of the inputs here yet. I'm going to go to the settings. I'm going to change the number of lineups to 25,000. I'm going to change the contest field all the way up to 15,000, the largest, because I'm going to be playing the largest field contest. I'm going to change the payout structure to top heavy for the same reason. I'm of course going to use the Shady Portfolio Optimizer. Actually, let me check how many lineups I'm playing. I'm going to close my Excel. All right, 202 lineups. Okay, so I'm going to Shady Portfolio Optimize for 202. Gonna have to ask these guys to change this. There we go. So you can just enter the number. I'm so bad with these things, like to get it to land exactly on the number. It's a pain for me. All right. And now I'm just going to, I think I've done everything I need to do. Yeah, I'm just going to run it. It's going to take a few minutes. And you can see it tells you as it goes what step it's on. All right. Favorite captain in 3 max and favorite contrarian play. Let's see. Oh. Favorite captain in 3 max. I mean, it's probably Lamar Jackson. I think if I were playing a 3 max, if I were playing 3 lineups, honestly, I'd probably just play Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, and Mark Andrews. And then favorite contrarian play. Hopkins is kind of contrarian. I kind of like him. Justice Hill is kind of contrarian. If you want to go super contrarian, let me look at the ownership again. Oh, Derrick Henry getting no ownership now. Reset that. What's going on here? I don't totally hate the idea of playing Rasheen Ali and just like it's. I mean, I don't think he has a ton of Probably not any standalone value, but the contingent upside is there for a $200 player. It's easier to hit. So for like a super contrarian, I think Rasheen Ali kind of interesting. I kind of like Tylan Wallace at 5% ownership, $2,000. Pretty intrigued by that. But yeah, I think generally I'm going to be more playing DeAndre Hopkins, Justice Hill. I think those are like relatively contrarian. But actually, Josh Paul, man, he's expensive, 7,600. I'm on FanDuel right now. My bad. I mean, it's kind of the same names, but I want to make sure I have the prices right. Okay, yeah. Here, Josh Palmer is 5,400, but getting a little bit more ownership. Hopkins down at 13%. I like that. Ty Johnson at 10% also would kind of make the list. But yeah, if I'm choosing just one, if you're going for like under 5%, I think it would be Tylan Wallace. I mean, or Elijah Moore would be number 2 there for under 5%. But the players I'm going to actually get to in volume will be DeAndre Hopkins, Ty Johnson, Justice Hill, kind of Ray Davis, a little bit less than Justice Hill, but I still like him. I'll play a little bit of Charlie Kolar, but I don't think he's a big priority for me. I think it's more like he should run some routes with no Isaiah Likely, but I don't think he's going to be out there for like 60%. I think it's going to be more like 30 to 40%, which at 1,600 is not terrible, but all right, it's finding my optimal lineups. Nice. Glad I got you onto the FanDuel. Kickers seem sketchy tonight. Yeah. But they should have opportunities. Like, this should be a high-scoring game. I kind of like these, and I don't have data to back this up, but like when it's two good offenses against two good defenses, it's just kind of easy to envision that it's going to turn into like get down the field and then the defense makes a stand and they get a field goal. All right, let me get rid of this thing. The bots. Jesus, there's so many bots. I can't find what you guys are saying because of the bots. I need to find a better way to manage them. Gerald asked Neil, what are your thoughts on Henry and Hill in the same lineup and graded an ungodly amount, and I don't like it. Actually, that's a good thing that I can look at. So let me. Oh, here. Sorry, I should be doing this. You guys can't see what I'm doing. This is my apologies. So while this is running, let me pull up last year, so we can look at. So this is the Fantasy Points data suite, which, by the way, you can use promo code Flannel to get 15% off any product there. So I'm going to go to weekly report. I thought I only had this open. I guess not. All right. Weekly report, fantasy points scored. I'm going to do quarterback and running back so we can compare. We can look through the games. I got to go 2024. Because I imagine the next question somebody might have is, what about Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson? So you can see when Lamar Jackson has big games. So there's a game here of Lamar and Henry where Henry scores 16.6, Lamar 17.4. I don't know that you necessarily want that at their price tags, but week 3, Lamar 26, Derrick Henry 30.4. I think those, you take both of those in a lineup. Week 4, 24.6 from Lamar, 35.9 from Henry. You probably want both of those today. 34 and 16, maybe not. But you can see that like there are plenty of weeks here where you would want both Lamar and Henry in your lineup on a showdown slate. Now, obviously, with other players here with their price tags, like maybe Josh Allen still beats out one of them and you don't want them together, but there were a lot of games last year where both of them spiked together. But Justice Hill and Derrick Henry. So I'll look at the double digit game. Justice Hill, when he scored 11.5, Derrick Henry just 10.6 in week 1. But in week 4, 21.6 from Justice Hill, 35.9 from Derrick Henry. And I imagine it's going to be kind of contrarian. So you would definitely want this. I mean, obviously you would take that all day. Week 7, same thing, 13.8 from Justice Hill, 25.2 from Henry. Not too bad there. 14.2 from Justice Hill, 14 from Henry in week 12. So like generally when Justice Hill spiked, which was only a handful of times, there were 2 games where you would want Derrick Henry also. Two of the 5 games where he reached double digits, Derrick Henry reached at least 26 fantasy points also. And then there's also games where it's like, I mean, 8.8 from Justice Hill, 26 from Derrick Henry is not like the end of the world. So maybe slightly negatively correlated, but not extremely. All right, back to, I got to keep moving down. Appreciate that, Christopher. Really appreciate that you guys come and hang out with me while I do this. I love Showdown. I love talking about Showdown. A little bit less so on Sundays, admittedly, because I'm always like, it's like I'm in the middle of watching games and I'm so tired, but it's still always a good time. And Kolar's fine. Don't like love him, but he's fine. Rid of these bots. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Now the bots are like doing different bots with like the same name, or doing, it used to be I could just ban one user and it would delete all of them. Now it's like I'm not able to. All right. Any love for shavers with no Samuel? I think you can mix in a 150. I don't think I would get there in 20 lineups, but in a 150 set, I think I'd like to get to a little bit. Who wins this game? I'll give it to the Ravens. But I'm just like, I'm cheering for the Ravens. I think they're such a fun team. Thank you, Brandon. I appreciate it. Brandon's already trying to do it, and still like I'm like, damn, there's so many. No, you're right. Appreciate it, Brandon. Jordan, if you do hit first, make sure you come in with the avatar, get a hat. I'm excited to send them out. I obviously I need to get them first. They should be here this week. They were supposed to be here again, not last week, but the week before. But all right, this is taking a while. I maybe ran too many lineups. I'm worried it's going to time out. Warren Sharp said the refs are going to favor the Bills here. Jack says. Could be. At some point, I might just rerun this if this continues. Maybe because I went away from it. Went away from the screen, it threw things off. I don't know. But if I don't get to the next step by 7:03, it's Central Time. It's 7:01 right now. Then I am going to refresh and try with fewer lineups. So did I win the cage match? Nobody ever told me, or maybe I just missed it. Who Brock Purdy threw that last touchdown to? Oh, okay. I think it's down. I think DK Showdown is down. So I'm going to do my lineups real quick in Roto Grinders instead. So that's unfortunate, but I can show you how quickly I can build lineups in Roto Grinders. So what am I going to do? I'm going to go. It's been a minute since I've done it. All right, so we're going to go. Not going to set randomness. Going to go to Captain Max Exposure, 30%. Oops. Maybe I'll do 25. I'm going to do 25. Salary, 49-4. Let's see how out of practice I am with this. Groups. So I don't need to set, it is easier on this. Normally I would set quarterback groups where I say, if I have quarterback in the captain spot, require at least one of such and such number of players. I don't need to do that here. So that helps. Number of unique players. I usually leave that at 1 on, I'm debating whether I need it, whether I should be at 2 here on Showdown. I've always done 1, but I kind of wonder if there's enough combos that I actually should be doing 2. I'm going to leave it at 1 for now. Groups, lineups, late swap. There's no late swap for this. All right, I'm going to run 202 lineups. Do I want to put on any kind of randomness? I don't think so. Maybe just for the defense. Kickers. Sure. I'm just going to run it. Please modify your player pool. Player pool modifications. Okay. Oh, I have to, that's right. You have to change base points from 9 to 8, 5 to 4. They're having issues. Okay. Nice, nice. All right. Well, we'll do our best here. So after running that first set, I've got 75% Lamar Jackson in the flex. I imagine I also have 25% at captain then. Yep. So I have 100% exposure to Lamar Jackson right now. I don't want that. That's a little bit too much risk. I've got same thing with Josh Allen. So I'm going to need to lower my quarterback exposures a little bit. Still getting a 49% Derrick Henry, getting a 49% Justice Hill. I think I'm actually going to set a higher, more restrictive salary cap to get to a little bit less of the super expensive guys. But again, I like having them in a lot of lineups. I just don't want to have 100% of each. Could turn on a little bit of randomness. Not getting much Keon Coleman, Dalton Kincaid. So some of the players I really like, I'm going to try to get to a little bit more. I am getting some Jackson Hawes. Interesting. Getting to like 0 James Cook. I mean, even as somebody who's pretty out on James Cook, I don't want that much. This is why I need the shady optimizer, the portfolio optimizer tool. All right, but we're gonna do it this way. So I'm gonna go set this a little bit lower. I'm gonna turn on a little bit more randomness. Maybe just 10%. Good. I don't like to set max exposures because I'm not sure exactly how that works functionally. So I'm just gonna do what I always do, which is just change the projections slightly. So I'm gonna go Lamar down to 21, Josh Allen down to 21, Derrick Henry down to 16, Mark Andrews up to 12.4. Gonna move Shakir down a little bit. Keep Coleman. Bateman up slightly. Kincaid. Oh, and I forgot I can actually see the exposures right here. This is yeah. Okay, so I can. So James Cook, as much as I'm not very bullish, I want to move him up just a tiny bit. I was already at 10.9% Shakir, which is fine with me. So I'm going to move him back to his original projection. I'm going to move Keon Coleman up though. Bateman, Kincaid, I'm going to move up a little bit more. Palmer at 10.4%. I want more than that. Getting to a ton of Justice Hill. I'm going to leave him where he is in terms of projection. And he'll come down a little bit because I'm changing everybody else. And as you change one projection, it changes everybody else relative to those players. So if I leave him while moving other players up, I'll probably get less. I'm getting to a ton of Kolar with a projection of 3. I'm going to leave him. I do want more Hopkins, so I'm going to move Hopkins up a couple fantasy points here. Ty Johnson very slightly. I do want some Elijah Moore, I think. I do want a little bit of Tylen Wallace. I'm getting to a little bit of Tyrell Shavers, Tez Walker, Jackson Hawes with a projection of 0.05. I think I might just remove him from my... Yeah, just removing those two from my player pool. All right, now I'm going to run it again. All right. Bateman captain looks good, Joanne says. Yep, I like Bateman. Low ownership at captain. I think that you guys get rid of the bots and it doesn't get rid of them in StreamYard. So I think that's the, you guys are getting rid of them in YouTube, which I really appreciate. That's really helpful. But then I'm still seeing them on my end is I think what's going on. Okay. So now I'm down slightly. I'm down to 73% Lamar Jackson, but still 98% in total. I am going to go back into my player pool. I'm going to run it once more before entering anything. So I'm going to move both these guys down even more to 20. I'm actually going to move James Cook up. After talking about how much I don't really want him, I want more than none, more than 3% that I'm getting currently. I'm fine with 12% Khalil Shakir. I'll probably get to less as I move up other players. Okay. Matt Prater, I'm down to 13%. I'm actually going to move him up a little bit. Justice Hill, I'm still getting to 47%. I'm actually going to move Justice Hill down a little bit, even though I really like him and want to get to a lot. I don't want quite that much. Ravens defense, I'm actually going to move up a little bit more because I'm not getting any there. Hopkins, I'm going to move up more. Ty Johnson, I'm going to move up a little bit more. Bills defense, I didn't even move them up at all. I do want some Elijah Moore, so I'm going to move him up. Still getting a bit of Tylen Wallace, 5%, but still going to move him up slightly to make sure he's keeping up with the other changes I'm making. Okay. I'm going to run it one more time. Damn, Brandon said he got to 50% more in 20 max. Bill Soran, you mean like on a main slate you don't add them much? Because I don't either. I just they're tough. All right, we're still at 72%, 69%. I'm going to real quick, just going to change those two. Again, I do like both quite a bit, the quarterbacks, but I don't want them in. I want them in under 90% of my lineups overall, I think. So I'm going to run that real quick. All right, there we go. I mean, I've got them in slightly less than 90% of my lineups. I have more Zay Flowers than I want, but I'm gonna download this just to make sure I don't have dead lineups. Pretty sure I've got 8 minutes, right? This is a 7:20 game, not a 7:15 game, but still gonna do this way. All right, so I've got some lineups in. So we're cool, calm, collected. Don't have to worry about zeros. And we're still going to go back and make some more. Appreciate that, Christy. Glad to hear that it's helpful. The plan is to get more sleep tonight and spend a lot of time on tomorrow's slate and bring a little bit more energy tomorrow than I have today. I'm doing my best. But I know that I'm a little bit spacey right now. All right. So we're going to go back. I need to delete those. I forgot about that. Okay, so those numbers are actually skewed, the ones we were looking at, because they were showing all of my lineups, not just my latest run. So let me look at this one more time. I'm still happy with the amount I'm getting. Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen. I'm down to 21% Henry. 55. I'm actually going to move Flowers down a little bit. I don't want that much. I'm going to move Cook up slightly. Getting to a lot of Andrews. I like that. It's a lot of Kincaid, but I'll allow it. Okay, so I am down to 29% Justice Hill. Moving him back to his original projection. Going to move Ray Davis up slightly. Charlie Kolar, 7%, totally fine with me. Going to move the Ravens defense up a little bit. I'm at 31% DeAndre Hopkins. I like it. I like that. Down to 0% Dawson Knox. I think I'm fine with that. If he scores a touchdown, he might kill me. He still might not. Moving Elijah Moore up to 6 fantasy points. I'm at 3% right now. I'd like to get a little bit more. Tylen Wallace, I do need to move up a little bit because I'm not getting much now. I'm going to move up Tyrell Shavers slightly. 1.2 fantasy points. 1 for Tez Walker. I don't really care if I get 0 there, but we'll see what happens. I'm going to run it one more time. I just realized I didn't do this on the show last year. So maybe you've not seen me quickly going through my builds as I'm adjusting everything. It's not the most riveting television to hear me just making small adjustments to players, but I'm not going to go over all my reasoning again when I've already done it. All right, so now we're down to 65% Lamar, 65% Lamar, 59% Josh Allen, 50% Mark Andrews, 44% Zay Flowers, 39% Justice Hill. We're getting like these are closer to the numbers that I want, at least. 22% Derrick Henry. Kind of think I should be playing 11% James Cook. That's probably a little bit much for Mark Andrews for me. I'm only at 1% Rashad Bateman captain. I don't love that, but I'm at 29% in the flex. I'm not going to force it. All right, so I'm going to go back to my player pool. I am going to get just a little bit more Derrick Henry. Move him up slightly. Still going to move down Zay Flowers a little bit more. Going to move down Mark Andrews slightly. I don't want to have quite 50%. It's a lot of Justice Hill. I think I'm okay with it. Actually, I'm going to move Ray Davis up closer there. Maybe even a little bit more. Oh, Ty Johnson I want more of. Jeez. Bills defense. Tylen Wallace. Terrell Shavers. Moving Hopkins back up. I'm down to 1.5% Charlie Kolar. That's all right. Tez Walker. It'd be Tez Walker over Gilliam for me, I think. There are ways you can correlate, yeah. I'll love to hear. Christy says, will be posted. I won a little money off your help, not $1,000. I only put in 15 to 20 lineups. Nice. Well, I'm glad to hear that. Okay. All right. I'm gonna export this one. Not as cool as running the Sims and getting the shady portfolio optimization. I've been really enjoying that. It's been fun just to like see how it goes. But I've had success using optimizers for showdown slates. Maybe I'll do it again. Or maybe I'll lose all my money. You never know. That's the fun of Showdown. So we finished with 65% each of Lamar and Josh. So I did actually end up with, I assume, 90% in total of each of them. Yep. 46% Mark Andrews in the flex, 38% Zay Flowers, 34% Justice Hill, 29% Dalton Kincaid, 27% Josh Palmer, 27% Derrick Henry, 26% Dustin Hopkins, 25% Keon Coleman, 22% Ty Johnson, 17. Oh, I should have gotten more Bateman. It's too late now. I ended up underweight to the field on Rashad Bateman, made too many adjustments, went from 29% to 17% in that last run on a player I really like. So that's kind of a bummer. Hopefully you guys played him. 12% James Cook, 5% Elijah Moore, 3% Tyler. I'm actually under the field on Tylan Wallace. So I didn't get to the exact exposures I like, but that is going to be the final run here. All right. So tomorrow, I will be with Adam at noon Eastern. We're going to be, you guys should come and mock him relentlessly because he just hated on Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt for weeks. And then Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt had a great game. So let's come and relentlessly mock Adam tomorrow at noon Eastern. And then in the evening, I'll be doing a solo show again on this channel before lock after we get inactives for my Vikings and the Bears before I head out to watch that game. Yeah, JCM, what a game. What a game for JCM. Good luck all is right. Appreciate all of you for hanging out. Please do like this video and subscribe to, call that Adams 911. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so. JBX Gang, what's up, man? All right, let's get out of here. Appreciate you all. See you tomorrow. Good luck tonight. Make some money.